Hello, and welcome back to the final episode for our Modern Horizons 3 set review for Limited. We've got Yanks on the call again, and we've already done the introduction, all the colors, and colorless. So if you guys missed those, make sure you guys go back and check those out afterwards. Today, we're going to be going over every single multicolor card and giving them a rating between 1 and 10 based on how we think they will do in the average deck for Limited, so drafts and sealeds. Welcome back, Yanks.
Glad to be back as we look at what multicolor, even though it's sometimes colorless, as this first card shows, brings us.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump right in to what the heck is this card doing? It's an angel. It's a skirt
Angel.
shot of an angel.
It's an interesting decision.
Yep. All right. So we've got a Devoid instant for 4 mana that says exile target non-land permanent. You may cast that card as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend colorless mana as though it were mana of any color. Wow. Sweet.
Specifically colorless mana, not generic mana.
Yes. Interesting. Huh. That's an interesting 2-for-1.
Yeah, I mean, just as a 1-for-1, it would be pretty good.
Yeah, and we did just see a ton of lands in the colorless section that made colorless. I was actually impressed. Throughout the set, I've been a little hesitant. I wasn't sure how easy colorless mana would be to make, but there were plenty of comes into play tapped lands that tap for colorless that you can then cycle away or use as like an evolving wild to get color if you need them. When you don't need the colors, you can keep it. So I'm not as worried about getting the colorless. I think that's really cool. Yeah, this card seems pretty sweet. This is just a really strong removal spell to me.
Even if, it's like I said, even if you didn't get to cast the card, I'd be thrilled to play this card. And with that bonus, it's even better.
I'm going to give this an 8.5.
Agreed.
Great.
Premium plus.
Next, we have Arna, an Esper and 2 mana for a 4/4 human knight with flying and lifelink and ward, discard a card. Great 2-for-1. Whenever a modified creature you control attacks, double the number of each kind of counter on it. Then, for each non-token permanent attached to it, create a token that's a copy of that permanent attached to it. So it's a big lord for all of the modified creatures. But it's not green, which is interesting.
Yeah, I was just thinking, why is this not Abzan?
Huh. I mean, it doesn't really matter, right? It's kind of cool anyway. It doubles living weapon equipments, which is neat. Sure. And there's a living weapon in like basically every color. There's a good one in black. Like, I think this is cool, even if you don't have a lot of modified and because you're not green or whatever, which I don't think you need to because white had a lot of modified on its own. And your other 2 colors will also just have some naturally with adapt or whatever. And a 5 mana 4/4 lifelink flyer with a decent ward cost is just something I'm interested in doing no matter what.
Agreed. Those stats are, like we saw with the lands, I don't think it's the 3-color thing is that much of a restriction in this set.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I like this card.
Yeah. It has to be on the battlefield whenever a modified creature attacks. So you can cast it pre-combat and get some bonuses, but if you don't have those in play yet, then you're a little sad. This feels like a 9 to me, even in a deck that's not necessarily 100% built for it.
As long as you can reliably cast this card, it's great because on its own, like you said at the very start, it's a nice little 2-for-1.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this card's fantastic. So, what do you think rating wise?
9 works for me.
All right, next we have the Conduit Goblin, 2 mana for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay an energy. If you do, another target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. I like that. So you can 2/2 for 2 that then lets you give 2 other creatures a little trumpet blast hasty situation. Great for what Boros is typically looking to do. So that feels very on brand for the card. That said, it's just a common. So it is very impactful for a 2-drop common.
The fact that it just lets effectively everything you play from here on out get haste is fantastic because I got to imagine you have some other energy generation.
Yeah, and it's
So
good.
as long as this isn't dead, you just get to turn all your creatures into hasters.
It makes it really hard for your opponent to try to race you in any situation, right? Because you don't,
True.
they never know what you're going to drop.
True.
So rating wise, again, it's just a 2-drop, but it's just common, so it's not the most impactful thing in the world, but it does all of the things very well. So I like this at a 6.
I like it as a 6. I love pointing out fun flavor text. I like this is such goblin flavor text. The warned against wearing metal in a lightning storm. Smirk took it as a challenge. That sounds like something a goblin would do.
Absolutely. He looks cute with his little goggles.
The goggles are pretty great.
Next, we have the Cranial Ram, 2 mana for an artifact equipment. It's a living weapon, comes into play with a germ, and it comes attached to it. It is equipped creature gets plus X plus 1, where X is the number of artifacts you control. So this is a neat little affinity for artifact card with a payoff of 2, equipped for 2 mana, so I think it's a good payoff. So on its base, it is a 1/1 for 2 mana that just kind of grows. And then from then on, it's equip 2 to give each creature a minimum of +1/+0. I'm not playing it without the artifact the artifact assistance, but I feel like if you're looking at this card, you probably have enough to make it worth it. I'm gonna say this is like a 5.
A clear throwback to cranial plating, much
Yeah.
worse because of the casting cost and the equip cost is more, although it does bring a creature with it. It's hard to get enough artifacts to make this like a true threatening bomb like cranial plating was in Mirrodin
Mm-hmm.
when you have artifact lands and stuff like that. But black red is that theme, so I like it where you are around a 5. It is a card that definitely gets better in multiples too.
Yeah, the other nice thing too is that even if by itself it's not that strong, I feel like it's going to be a good 2-drop equipment that will enable the rest of your affinity for artifact stuff and help you get into that snowbally situation.
Agreed.
Rating. Oh, yes, yes, yes. So my deck that I played at Wizards for the early access thing was Selesnya Splash, 2 of these guys. So it's a 2 mana, 2/3 Wombat Nightmare. And for 4 mana, you can adapt 2. Permanents you control have whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be put onto this permanent, an additional counter is put on it. This ability triggers only once each turn. So that includes itself. So it just gets +3/+3, which is really cool. And the rest of the Selesnya stuff really, really benefited from it. So I splashed a 2-drop, which I would never usually do, but this like counter lord was just mwah, so beautiful.
I can't add much to that. You have the experience with this card, so it is. It certainly looks powerful.
Yeah, and even if you're not in like Selesnya, I think that there's a great Golgari home. There's plenty of +1/+1 counters, and it's just above rate on itself. So even if it's not a true blue +1/+1 counter deck, you're getting an amazingly statted creature here already. 2/2 for 2 that then will turn into a 5/6 in.
There's 10, not counting this one, 9 other adapt creatures in the set, most of which were in, or a significant number of which were in green.
And we saw
So
like
it
that
shouldn't be too hard.
insane combat trick for 1 green mana that puts a counter. We saw the overload card that puts a counter and then doubles those counters. You're gonna get that, oh
Works with things like connive.
yes, there was plenty of black connive cards. Let's go. I'm very high on that card. I love the wombat.
I can tell.
Cyclops Superconductor. All right, 3 mana for a 2/2 with prowess. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy. When it dies, you may pay 3 energy. When you do, Superconductor deals damage equal to its power to any target. So even if you don't have any other energy, it's kind of cool. You get a little shock at the end or more if you got to do any sort of prowess or counters or any sort of shenanigans. This seems fine. It's certainly no wombat, but
No, it's a card that is very hard to like attack into or block if they have open mana.
prowess threat of activation is always pretty scary.
And you get kind of double the threat here with the death trigger.
Absolutely. What do you think rating wise?
I think this is a 6. We're expecting that blue-red, you're going to have some decent amount of energy production, and you're going to have spells. If you don't in blue-red, that's a problem in and of itself.
Agreed. So rating-wise, it's not as signposty as I'd like it to be. I'm going to say it's only a 5.5 just because it needs some help.
Sure.
Emissary of Soulfire. 3 mana, 1/4. When it enters, you get some energy. You can pay 2 of it. Put an exalted counter on target creature you control. Activate only the sorcery. That's neat. And you could put multiple exalted counters onto things. If you wanted to stack them up, if you didn't have multiple creatures, you could put them across multiple creatures if you have more energy. I think this is definitely worth playing, and I think exalted is worth keeping around.
And it's not one of the sort of like the Conduit Goblin. This doesn't have to attack to use that ability.
Yeah, I think this is stronger.
I think Azorius is kind of trying to. It's doing the energy thing, but it's trying to go big, which is nice with Exalted because it is wanting you to only attack with one thing, but it also doesn't force you to put all of your eggs in that basket because you can spread the Exalted counters around.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think in rating wise? I'm thinking like I wanted it to be a little bit higher, but I don't know. 6 might just still be about it.
6 feels right to me.
Yeah, I like it better than the Goblin, but they're roughly the same, like, land marker for me.
Agreed.
All right, next we have the Expanding Ooze. It's a 3/3 for 3. Has 2 for adapt 1. Whenever Ooze attacks, put a counter on target modified creature you control. So after you adapt it, it just attacks on turn 4 as a 4/4 and then as a 5/5.
Yep, with a couple mana left over.
Yeah. On turn 4, you're attacking with a 5/5. This seems busted. Huh.
Both the Golgari cards you've seen so far seem pretty good.
Is it just me, or is this better than the 2 signpost uncommons?
Like the ones we just saw?
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, the Cyclops is a common. That isn't one.
Oh, I wasn't even counting that. I was thinking I liked that one less than I really liked the other 2. I was thinking the Emissary, Soulfire, and then like the Goblin.
The Goblin was also a common.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. I like this better than all of them so far.
Yeah, I was wondering just because you said signposts, and the only 2 signposts were the Wombat was one of them. Like, there's no way you like this.
Oh, yeah, no. But can you imagine this with the Wombat? Oh.
Yeah.
So cute. So cute. I will overrun my opponents with oozy cuteness.
I mean, the sad thing is, it feels like if that was reality, the ooze would eat the Wombat, but...
No. The ooze works for the Wombat, you see.
Wombat's control oozes.
I think this card is better. I'm going to give this a 6.5.
Works for me. It's just, it doesn't need any help.
This is the Faithful Watchdog. This is how I ended up with 2 8/8s on turn 4. It is a Vigilant 0/0 that comes into play with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. And if you have scary things out like Branching Evolution, Wombat, all sorts of other cards, this can get out of hand incredibly quickly. So, yeah, this card is really good. It's a 2 mana 3/3 that is already adapted, that can proliferate, which is in this set. It can... Yeah, this can do so much. I'm very, very into this card. It's still, it still needs the synergy help, so it's still probably just like a 5.
That sounds right. It's, the whole colorless mana in this set's throwing me off a little bit. Like, how easy is green-white gonna be on like turn 2?
I think if you're trying to do this dog thing, you're not really trying to mess with the colorless mana. I think that's a very specific deck, and I don't think that will deter this from
but it's happening. Like, are you running some of those sack lands?
I doubt it.
I think 5 is fine.
This is not the kind of deck you would build for sure, but I do think it is the like very specific 2-color get to business, evolve, adapt, smash face. So you're typically not trying to mess with like tapped lands and things. This card has a lot of words on it. Genku,
Genku.
Future Shaper. 4 mana for a 2/5. Whenever another non-token permanent you control leaves the battlefield, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Create a creature token with those characteristics. It's a 2/2 white fox with vigilance, a 1/2 moonfolk with flying, or a 1/1 rat with lifelink. You can also pay 5 mana to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Shut up. Excuse me? This is like a 9. What is happening here?
Card's really good, but it's kind of nonsense. Like, none of this doesn't fit what blue-white's necessarily trying to do, and like, sure, that whole first stuff with the different creature tokens is kind of thematic. Okay, you get to pick 3 different ones, then just randomly giving blue-white like a counter synergy, put everything just seems, I don't know. The card design just seems very strange here.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a reason. I don't know. The card by itself makes some sense. Like if you're making these little idiots, right? And you have like some payoff for doing that, I'm okay with it. But you're right. I feel like it is a little bit more Selesnya, or if this were Orzhov, because Orzhov I think is the secondary color.
Yep.
I think it's Abzan that is like typically interested in doing the. Oh, well, we did see the Esper Lord, right?
Sure. With some modified stuff.
This fits with the Esper Lord for modified, so maybe it is just. That's kind of why I was saying that I felt that this set had so much overlap with its synergies that it could be a 3 to 4 color deck, because we're seeing things like this where there are good cards that will work with what you're doing across so many multiple colors. It's not all just shoehorned into only 2.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt like blue-white in particular was one of those that felt really defined, and this just isn't part of it.
Maybe. I mean, blue-white was the like go wide, put counters.
Go tall.
Kind of like support and stuff like that. So this is helping with that.
Yeah.
Right? We saw a couple of things that was like put counters on up to 2 creatures. I feel it in blue. Or I'm sorry, in white words. It's very,
I could be wrong. It's just this feels just very out of place so far from what we've seen. Doesn't mean it's not a good card though.
Yeah, I feel like this is not the kind of Azorius you play. It is the kind of the Azorius that I play, where it's like Azorius soldiers, like you saw in Brothers War, or stuff like that. I tend to really like those decks, so I probably just vibe with it a little bit more. Next up, we have my preview card, actually. Golden Tail Trainer. Another modified creature, a 3 mana 1/3 that says aura and equipment spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, where X is the power of this creature, so it needs to be modified to like really get a benefit. And when it attacks other modified creatures you control, get +X/+X, where X is the number of this creature's power. So you really get a benefit for modifying this creature specifically. And then you pump everything else, which is nice. Other modified creatures, yeah.
I'm mostly looking at this card for the second clause, but the fact that things are cheaper is nice, especially with the number of bestow creatures we've seen.
Yeah, I will say it's no wombat, but it was my preview card, and I do love me some modified. So I'm excited to play this card and see how it feels. I did not play this in my Wizards deck, so I'm hoping it's going to be good, because I always want my preview cards to be good.
Definitely.
I'm going to say it's a 6.
6 works for me on this, yeah.
I think it's doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Yep.
Next up, we have the Horrid Shadow Spiner. 3 mana for a 2/3 with lifelink. Whenever it attacks, you may draw cards equal to its power. If you do, discard that many cards. So this is enabling the draw 3 per turn, which is a sort of sub-theme here in Dimir. So you drew the one for your turn, and this will enable the other 2. So I think by itself, it's like one of the weaker signpost cards, unless you have those payoffs. So for me, it's probably just a 5.
5 sounds right. This feels like a theme that's not, so from what we've seen, doesn't quite get there.
Yeah, it doesn't seem as fleshed out. Now maybe maybe just being able to filter your hand that many per turn is worth it. I always, at that point in the game, you tend to have a bunch of cards in your hand, so your gains are marginal, if that makes sense.
Sure.
You're replacing playable cards with slightly more playable cards, unless you're getting some sort of payoff for it, or triggers in the graveyard, some recursion, some self-mill. Gotta have something for this one. I think this one needs the most help.
Not only needs the most help, but doesn't seem to have that help from what we've seen.
Unlike the modified, which is just literally in every color. 5. Next up, we have the Imsker Iron Eater. Whatever. 8 mana for a 5/5 affinity for artifacts demon. Costs 1 less for each artifact. When it enters the battlefield, you draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is half the number of artifacts you control rounded down. Sacrifice an artifact. It deals damage equal to sacrificed artifacts' mana value to any target. That's cool. It's a very specific card for a very specific deck, but that's what the multicolors are. We just rate them based on assuming it's in that deck. And if it is, then this seems good.
Yeah, this is the type of card that if I can get it early, I'm just drafting all sorts of crappy artifacts and just throwing them in the deck.
Even if you only have a handful, like I'm still fine with this ability on, like, I don't know, a 6-drop.
Yeah, 6 for 6, you're drawing 1 and losing 1.
And you have a 5/5. Maybe you need it to be a little bit more.
And then, you have those, depending on what those artifacts are, if they've outlived their usefulness, you have things
you could
to throw.
Them. Yeah. I wish it was like X plus 1 or something, so it could be like tokens or something, but I don't think there are any artifact tokens really.
We saw some. There's a card that made blood tokens.
Germs? No, germs aren't artifacts. They're black.
I think with just blood, food, and maybe there was something else I'm missing, like a treasure or a clue somewhere.
Yeah, either way.
There was investigate somewhere, so.
Either way, still pretty useful. I think that this is in the deck that wants it, the affinity deck. I think this is like a 9.
Agreed. It's the card for that deck.
Invert polarity, blue, red. For an instant, choose target spell. Then flip a coin. If you win the coin flip, gain control of that spell, and you may choose new targets for it. If you lose, counter that spell. That seems sweet, actually. So at worst, it's a counter. At best, you get to remove their creature. 2 for 1.
I'm convinced that like half the people at Wizards that design Izzet cards think that the Izzet theme is just do weird stuff. Because that's just like everything is always like a normal card, but weird.
I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Because you're taking, it's a Spellslinger deck, right? And so like you can do a lot with creature design, but you have to sort of like break the mold a little bit to do different things with spells, right? You can only have so many counters. You can only have so many burn spells. So I don't know. I kind of like the idea of when I think of Izzet, I think of like electricity and I'm trying to think of like a movie or something that can express how can explain how I feel about Izzet, but like in D&D, you when you cast a spell, you can like based on what you roll, you can miss and it can backfire and it can do all these weird things. And I feel like Magic as an entity is a little funky and weird, so I kind of vibe with it. I like this actually. I don't know that I necessarily like it in limited. It seems hard to cast, but I'm still playing this for sure.
I'll play this. I'll definitely play this card. It's I don't know. I'm there's enough variance in the game already to not have it printed on the card, in my opinion. With the flip a coin thing, on this case, it's like there is no fail case, right?
Yes,
it's just
and that's what I like.
Better.
I liked that. I liked that in the D&D set when it was flip a thing where it was like do a thing, and if you get above a 16, you also get like a treasure or like something like kind of minor where you know what you're getting and you might get a bonus, but the bonus is not necessarily game breaking. This is a rare, so it's a little bit more powerful than that. But I think that as long as it's not like you spent 7 mana and did nothing, ha ha ha, that as long as that's not the variance we're talking about, I'm here for it.
Agreed. I mean, this card isn't offensive in that way for sure.
Rating wise, I think it's actually kind of cool. So if I'm in, is it? I'm gonna give it a 6.
6 works for me. It's a kind of a cancel with upside, and is it?
Is it Genitorium? 2 mana.
Yes.
What?
You said, is it generatorium? Yes, it is.
Yeah. 2 mana, you get, if you would get 1 or more energy, you get that much +1 instead. You can draw a card. Activate only if you've paid 4 or more energy this turn. It's an enabler and a payoff all on its own. So the deck that wants this wants it a lot. I would say that that would put me in the 6.5 range.
I'm definitely lower on this card. It is. I like that it's enabler and a payoff in the same card. I just feels like it could be pretty hard to get there.
Yeah.
Um,
It'll perform significantly less in like the middling versions of the deck. But in order to have a stellar version of the deck, these are the kinds of cards you need in mass quantity. These very hyper-tuned specific cards, I think, is how you get those incredibly powerful synergistic decks.
sure. I don't know. I see this card just being played and not doing anything way too much.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the problem with having those decks that are just not quite there or even further away. Then having these sorts of payoffs aren't good enough. You would be better off just playing a 3/3 for 3.
Sure, which I think is why I just put it low, because I know we're assuming we're in the energy deck, but if we're assuming we're in an average one, then I think this isn't going to be very good.
Yeah, I think that's right. It has a really high ceiling, but I
Agreed.
agree that I think it is a bit lower. So I'll go to a 6, but I do think it is powerful and important for the deck.
I think I'm about like a 5.
Kudo, King Among Bears, 2 mana for a 2/2. Other creatures have base power and toughness 2/2, and are bears in addition to their other creature types. So it makes all your little Eldrazi spawns 2/2s, and it makes all their big creatures
Yeah,
tiny.
yeah, or vice versa.
No, you don't play it if it's vice versa.
True, but remember when we did say green white we were talking earlier. Probably not the one doing all that colorless Eldrazi spawn stuff.
Yeah, well, green is doing quite a bit of it just on accident, like the 3 mana 3/3 that makes 2 of them, and I feel like there'll be a fair amount. That said, I don't love this card, but there will definitely be, with white's influence, a lot of little creatures. So I can see a deck where I put this in. Although I would love to board this in against an Eldrazi deck.
Sure.
Rating wise,
Then you get Eldrazi bears.
yes, I think it's just a 3.
A 3.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you on that. It's just more of a sideboard card. I can see that.
Yeah. I think there is a deck that will play it, but it is not the average deck, and I think it would be a pretty shitty Celestia deck.
Fair enough.
So there's definitely a deck that I will have that I will be like, this is the card, and I'll be like, this deck is bad, but this is the card.
Fair.
Nadu Winged Wisdom, 3 mana for a 3/2 flying creature. Creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, reveal a top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. This triggers only twice each turn. This card seems busted.
It gives like hexproof light to everything. It's like, not that they can't target it, but they don't really want to.
Yeah, it gives ward. I get to draw a card, basically.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's a 3 mana 3/4 flyer. What an incredible stat line. Bork, bork, bork. And it replaces itself immediately, which is cool. So 8.
8 works for me.
All right, the Necrobloom, 4 mana. What?
I don't know. It just sounded like it should be part of like a. You're announcing like I don't know, just the Necrobloom. It's like dun dun dun.
Oh, I see.
I don't know.
I heard a so I thought like something was wrong. 2/7 with Landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, make a plant green token creature token. Excuse me, that is not a spawn. I'm confused. If you control 7 or more lands with different names, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token instead. Lands you control in your graveyard have dredge 2.
How can we make this set weirder? Let's staple Field of the Dead onto a plant.
Yeah. And I feel like that makes sense because plants are on the land and the lands they grow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sure. And I feel like Field of the Dead was a mistake. So we're trying to make a new mistake that is less mistakey. I mean, if I'm in these colors, great. Is this worth splashing? Sometimes. So probably. Why is it making an O1 plant? What am I doing with this plant? That's what I want to know.
I mean, I guess that's trying to be like a callback to Avenger of Zendikar.
Yeah, but Avenger of Zendikar then put a bunch of counters on it, didn't it?
It did, but I guess maybe the idea is you're in Abzan, so you have other ways to put counters on things.
Yeah, Abzan
Maybe.
does counter. That is the three. That is the wombat trifecta. So I like that.
You know,
I
you've said in the past, like, you don't like when people come on your stream and stuff, and you don't have like a saying or catchphrase. I think Wombat Trifecta should be it.
it is a cute wombat, and I love him. He looks adorable. Okay, wombat trifecta. So I'm not willing to overrate this card because of the O1s. Like, I'm willing to just kind of neutral them and give them a 2/7 that for 4 mana that will eventually make you 2/2s. I still think that is good. The plants are maybe like a fringe bonus that could get useful, but you got to build some stuff and who's got time for that? So these cards are hard to evaluate.
It's also probably never going to make you a 2/2, right?
Why?
Because you're not going to have 7 different named lands.
Oh man, I thought it was just 7 lands.
Nope.
Fine, it's like a 6.
I think 7 is like a 5. It's awkward to cast, and it's just a big butt for the most part. If you have enough things that can put like a counter on
Counters and
everything,
stuff.
sure. But it seems like you said, with green probably randomly making Eldrazi spawn, you probably have enough kind of dirtly bodies to just stick counters on already. Unless you can do it en masse to everything.
I just want to like it, Yanks. Come on, I'm trying really hard to like this card, and I didn't want to, and then I had to talk myself into it, and now you're ruining it. 5.5. I'll meet you in the middle.
Fair.
3 mana, 2/2 gargoyle. It has flying as long as it's modified, and it has persist, which is cool. Comes back and does some stuff. Which also modifies it?
Yeah.
Turns it into a 1/1.
It's now a 1/1 flyer.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Which explains the art. He has got like arrows in him, and he's in the rafters.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's kind of cool. These are in the wombat trifecta colors, so we can modify this as a 2/2 and turn it into flying as is, and then we can mitigate those -1/-1 counters by putting +1/+1 counters on, getting it back over and over again. Yeah.
Yes, but you do lose flying at that point.
No, yeah, you put one and then you put another, and then they kill it because they have to, and then you get it back, and then you put one and then you put another, and then they have to kill it, and then you get it back.
Sure.
It'll never die because of the wombat trifecta. So I'm going to say this card is... I'm going to pretend like you have counters. If you don't have counters, stop talking about this card. But if you do, I'm going to say it's a 6.
6 works for me. Agreed. You're just flat out not playing it without the counter synergy.
Yeah. You mean wombat synergy.
Trifecta, yes.
Undo Not Master. 4 mana for a 2/2 with an adventure that says you can pay to distribute 2 +1/+1 counters among 2 creatures. The wombat trifecta. And it also is a 2/2 with lifelink. Whenever another modified creature you control dies, put 2 counters on this creature. So it modifies itself as well. Great. Add it to the wombat army. Hammy agrees. This is a great card. I love this card. It's sorcery, but that's okay. I think this is a 6. I'm just giving everything a 6.
Another 6. They're all kind of, for the most part, doing what the decks want to do.
Unfortunately, I like the Not Master enough to where I think I still want to give it a 6, but I think it does mean I have to retroactively have to go back and give the Gargoyle 5.5. So, sorry, Gargoyle. Fledged Titan of Fire's Fury. What?
I say it's all right. The Gargoyle will just keep coming back.
Yeah, he can come back and get a point later. 3 mana for a 6/6, excuse me. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escaped. Oh, it's one of these thingies. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, it deals 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life. It's just a lightning helix? And it escapes.
Oh my god, it's Lightning Helix!
Oh my god, it's Fire's Fury. Cool that we have more of these. Like, I didn't hate them. They're kind of neat.
I think these cards are really good. This is what, the third one of these? Right? We just had Uro and Kroxa.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
I don't think we've had another one since then.
And I like Boros and I like Lightning Helix, so you're paying 3 mana for a Lightning Helix. It goes in the graveyard and then you just escape it, and whenever you get a chance, so that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably getting a card's worth of value out of this just for casting it, killing something and gaining 3 life. So for 3 mana, that's fine, and yeah, you'll get it later.
Yeah, it's like a little bit overcosted for the removal spell, but then you get some really nice late game oomph. As soon as you get to escape this, it's magical Christmas land.
I mean, if you get to, yeah, escape it, but if you just get to if you get to attack with this once, you've probably won the game.
Agreed. Oh.
Ooh.
Never mind. I just want to see if you sacked it at the end of turn, but no, you sacrifice it right away. I was gonna say the goblin could give it haste, but no, it doesn't work that way. That would be too cute. Rating wise, I mean, it's a little slow. People can remove it from the graveyard. There's some graveyard hate in this format, so 9.
Okay, there's a 9. There's a little bit of graveyard hate, but what's nice is that it's not really competing with anything else to use the graveyard as a resource.
Yeah.
Boros
tends to also have a lot of instants and sorceries that can help you escape this.
And a lot of little things that are getting traded off with. And
yeah.
So you should be able to at least escape this once. If they somehow deal with it then, it might be tough to get it a second time.
But by then you've gotten like 3 for 1.
Yeah, you've gotten 3. I thought it was 3 triggers minimum.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, 2 triggers minimum, right? Because it doesn't have haste.
Oh, true. Yep.
So
2 triggers minimum.
Which is a 3 for 1, because I assume you ate something, and then they removed it. So that's still a pretty darn good day in my book. So yep. I like it at a 9.
9 it is.
Planar Genesis, 2 mana. For an instant, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield tapped. If you don't put a card from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom in a random order.
This is a good version of this effect. Like a lot of times these sort of look at top rampy things are terrible late game, but here at least you just get to impulse.
If you don't put a card, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield tapped. If you don't, put a card from among them into your hand. Yeah, okay. I was confused for a second. I was missing that last little clause there. Yeah, impulse or... I mean...
Rampant growth or impulse, basically, combined.
Yeah, I usually don't like that in limited. Unless I'm trying... Like, rampant growth lets you go search for, like, your fixing color, which I like. This... I just want growth spiral. I don't like this. I don't think I want to do this in these colors.
It's weird because these colors want to ramp, but it feels like they want to do it with spawn.
Yeah, I feel like there are better opportunities. I'd rather put one of those 2 mana rocks that we saw in it or something like that. Not this net neutral, take a whole turn thing. I'm not saying it'll never get played. I'm just saying I'm not happy about it, so it's a 4.
Would you rather play this or the green rare that the cultivate?
That one searches for 2 lands. I'd rather play the cultivate.
Yeah, it's like that one has that one has card advantage, but it's also way worse. Like if you draw it late game.
Yeah. I agree with that, but I feel like if I'm running this, it's for that. So I'm still probably playing that over this. But it's
Fair.
the fact that that's a rare and this is not as close.
Yeah, I like it at that. I don't know. I'm a little higher on you, maybe 4.5. I'm not excited by this card by any means.
Yeah. Keeping it going. Psychic Frog. He's cute. 2 mana for a 1/2. When he deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, draw a card. Discard a card, put a counter onto the Psychic Frog, exile 3 cards from your graveyard. It gains flying until end of turn. That's cool. So if you can hit once, you can make him scarier and scarier. And he draws cards. I like that.
This might be one of my favorite, and you know, I'm hoping I'm not reading too much into this. This might be one of my favorite, like, sort of callbacks. That this is feels like a callback to Psychotog,
It
Psychic Frog,
100% is.
but it's not quite right. That you don't get to exile cards from your graveyard to make it bigger like you did then, because that was absurd. But it's
Yes.
also, it's got the one of the things about Psychotog at the time, right? The other card that was printed in the same set that was a rare at the same exact casting cost was Shadow Mage Infiltrator, which was the invitational card for John Finkel, and it got completely overshadowed by Psychotog. But its main ability was the first line, the draw card if it deals combat damage.
Yeah.
So I feel like they kind of combined those two into this, which is just a really cool throwback to Odyssey Block for me.
Yeah, they did talk a little bit about that in the like early review stream thing that they did that I was in. And I think it was Carmen who was talking about the callback, and they were very, very excited about it. It was wonderful to see. So these sets do have a lot of those really cool callbacks.
Oh, I'm glad that's the case because I did not see that yet. So I'm glad I was kind of on track with that.
Rating wise, I do think that this is a good card. I think giving it flying, it getting counters, it drawing cards is very cool. Does exactly what these colors want to do, which is draw extra cards. So I think this card is very good. It dies kind of easy, so it's a little tough to give it a super high rating, but I feel like it is quite valuable and can get out of hand and grow very quickly. And if played on the play and your opponent doesn't have a 2-drop, they're just kind of effed. So I think it's an 8.
I like it as an 8 as well.
Next we have the why can't I say this word?
Pyretic.
I know my mouth is not wording. For whatever reason, the oomph of the syllables is not coming together. Pyretic Rebirth. 4 mana for an instant return target artifact or creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Rebirth deals damage equal to that card's mana value to up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. Yeah, this is free. I'm running this every time. This is like great.
Definitely. You usually, and in this case, you will see this just for creatures, and you'll probably get a creature card back 90% of the time with this, but
yeah,
the artifact is just a nice bonus that might come up.
And you get to burn something. This is an 8.
8 works for me.
Yeah. Which is crazy for like a, get back card, but when you staple free removal onto it, I'm happy with that. Riddlegate
Definitely.
Gargoyle. 2 mana for a 2/2 flyer that enters, gives you some energy. Whenever you attack, you can pay some energy. When you do, target creature gains lifelink until end of turn. That's nice for a common little signposty thing. Why does it have a gargoyle body and a hippo head?
It's a riddle.
It's kind of creepy. It's fine. A 2/2 flyer for 2. I'm playing that. And then the lifelink is neither here nor there. I like that it gives you some energy. It's also an artifact if you need those. So this is a solid 6.
I like the card. I just feel like it's it's worse than the other stuff we've been seeing, even the other commons. So I've just got it at like a 5.
Yeah, I mean, a 2/2 flyer for 2 just kind of makes me happy.
I don't disagree with that. I don't know. I'm just like scared that's even though we've already moved past the Windrakes, that's already becoming, it doesn't do 6 things, it only does 2. So
I feel like it's got a worse ability by a lot compared to those other like signpost uncommons like the Boros Goblin and a few other things. But
sure.
I like the creature and the card type more. So to me, that like is the balancing act.
Fair.
So I think it will come in handy in a different way. I think it is stronger board presence, weaker ability, certainly. Oh gosh, this has a lot of words. 4 mana for a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, mill 6 cards. You may put a card with X mana value from among them into your hand. Okay. Reveal any number. Where's? How do we know it? What is X?
No, it has to have X in its mana cost, like just the letter
Oh,
X.
you may put a card with X in its mana cost. Oh, okay, that's not how I read that. I was like, what the fuck? What? How? Tell me what X is. Um, Tap, reveal any number of cards with X in their mana cost, and you can add colorless mana to your whatever. Spend this mana only on X cards. Okay. So there's one X spell in this set. I remember there's a colorless like command.
I think I'm scanning through it now. I think there are
There's
two.
there's a Hydra.
Yep, there's the Hydra and Kozilek's command.
Wow, I remembered them both. Hell yeah. So this is a 4/4 for 4. Fantastic. It's a 5. A 4.5.
It's a lot of words to not do anything.
It's a 4. I think this is a 4.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through. I'm still only seeing those two. So unless I missed something.
Scurry of Gremlins. 4 mana for when it enters the battlefield. Create 2 gremlin creature tokens. Then you get an amount of energy equal to the number of creatures you control. Great, so it's at least 2, but it's probably like in Boros, I don't know, 5, 6. You can also pay for, and creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. I don't think I'm interested in this. I don't think Boros is going to make that much energy. I think they'll make some, but not enough for me to want to trigger this like one time. Although you do get 2 1/1s, so if you want to go wide and you have other things, maybe you're just willing to play this because you get 3 pieces of cardboard out of it. I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. I think this is like a 5.
5 sounds about right to me. It feels like it's one that could be pretty powerful, but I just don't quite think it's going to get there to get a higher grade than that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Like 2 creatures and a half a Trumpet Blast is probably something I'd be willing to put in a deck, but I wouldn't be thrilled about it.
I will say I did find a couple more X spells.
Okay, still don't care.
But they're all in the bonus sheet or special guest, except for those 2.
Snapping Void Craw. 3 mana for a 1/3 devoid. Taps to add 2 colorless. You can also pay 4, including a colorless, and tap it to draw a card. This is great. And he's so cute.
I'm so nervous that they're setting us up for Simic to fail again because it feels really good.
It does. This looks good. This feels slimy, honestly. But I think this card is good. So I think this is fantastic. I like the card draw. I like the mana. It's doing everything I want my 3-drop in these colors to do. So let's go.
You're gonna be doing everything you can in this color pair to have permanent sources of colorless mana too, not just spawns. So
yeah,
ideally you're gonna be able to draw a card without repeatedly.
I think this is a 7.
Agreed.
Sneaky Snacker. 2 mana for a 2/1 flyer. When you draw your 3rd card in a turn, return Sneaky Snacker from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. I like free. If you're in these colors, sure. It's not super powerful, but it's a flying creature, so a lot of times it's going to eat your opponent's removal, and if you can get it back even just once or twice, it feels pretty good. So it's like a 5.
It's like a 5. It's just low impact.
The problem is that this color archetype doesn't seem that supported, so I'm just hesitant to give it any bigger.
Agreed, because you're to really get you get it back once, fine, but it's still not going to win you the game or anything like that. You got to get back a few times.
Yeah,
that seems pretty hard.
Agreed. Titan's Vanguard. 5 mana for a 5/5 with Devoid. When you cast this spell, and whenever Titan's Vanguard attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each colorless creature you control. Oh, mama.
Spawn, here we come.
This is an 8? Is this an uncommon 8? It doesn't say each other colorless either, so it's a 5/5 for 5 that attacks as a 6/6 with trample.
Yep, because you don't get the first trigger because it's a cast. but only you get the first attack one for 6. Yeah, that's card's very good.
This is an 8.
Uh,
One or
Probably,
one or two
yeah.
little spawns, and oh, your opponents are gonna cry. I'm gonna cry.
I think you're right. I think it's an 8.
Uncommon 8. Jesus, what is the world coming to? The Rite of Reliquary. 2 mana for a 2/2 with Vigilance. It gets +1/+1 for each card in your graveyard. Holy shiitake mushrooms. You can tap it, sacrifice another creature, search your library for a land card, put it onto the battlefield, tapped, and then shuffle. I like that that is not a sorcery speed, so you can do it in response to removal. You can do it in case of a combat trick. You can do it even after you've attacked because it's vigilant. This is cool. It's not highly impactful in the beginning, but it grows.
I enjoy when Wizards does these naming things,
Yeah.
like champion of the parish and the perished,
Yeah.
like Knight and White of the Reliquary. I think that's fun that they move on that. It doesn't say non-token creature either, so like theoretically you could even sacrifice a spawn to go get a permanent source of colorless mana if you wanted, or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think and it gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your graveyard. It's going to grow incredibly big. And if you draw it late, it's a 2/2. It's a 2-drop that is like what, a 6/6 or whatever.
Yeah,
That
probably.
seems incredibly powerful to me that you can draw it at any point in the game and have it be a scary thing. So I like this a lot. The mana's cool.
Uh,
7.5.
the downside to the name is that it's going to get compared to Knight of the Reliquary, and it's not that because it doesn't like infinitely grow itself like
Mm-hmm.
you can with the land, where you can just keep sacrificing the lands you get and keep growing. But it doesn't have to be. Like we're talking about a limited, set that it's not competing with Knight of the Reliquary. So yeah, I like this card a lot. 7.5 sounds
7.5.
good. Yep.
All right. Oh man, these are forever. We're almost done with like over 10 hours of set reviews.
Yep.
Uh,
Getting there.
Writhing Chrysalis, 4 mana for a 2/3 with Devoid. Whenever you cast this spell, create 2 Eldrazi spawn creature tokens with Reach. And whenever you sacrifice an Eldrazi spawn, put a +1/+1 counter on this. I like that.
Yeah, this can immediately be a 4/5 if you want it.
A 4/5 for 4, which is strong. But you can also just use the mana first. So you can cast it, and then on the next turn you can ramp into something big, and then attack the same turn as a 4/5. There's like minimal downside except for it has a small butt the turn that you played it, but you can always sack in response if you wanted to make it bigger. So very, very little downside. That's very cool. Like play on how this mechanic works. I like that a lot actually. 6.5.
0.5 is what I was gonna say.
Because it enables. I like the little spawnies. I think that's very cute. Next up, the Modal cards. They're free. 10 out of 10. Blood-Soaked Insight. 7 mana. This costs 1 less to cast for each life your opponent has lost this turn. Target opponent exiles the top 3 cards of their library. Until end of your next turn, you may play those cards. If you cast a spell this way, mana of any color can be spent to cast it. 10 out of 10. No notes. It's free. And on the back, it's even a dual land.
Yep, it doesn't have the pay 3 life to enter untapped like the single color ones do, but that's fine.
It even the casting cost, they didn't even hurt you by saying that this had to be 1/1 to force you into both colors of the land. You could just play it in your, Dimir deck. There's no downside. Every time
True.
I'm playing this is like 8 out of 8, 8 out of 10.
Sure, you can play this as a 5 black on a tapped swamp.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why wouldn't you? It's free.
Yeah, agreed. Although that there is a point at which the tap part of the lands matter, but it's not at 1, and it's probably not at 2 unless you're Boros.
And this format doesn't seem too fast in comparison to some of the ones we've seen so far.
No.
And I feel like most decks like this are fine. I don't think there's a ton of other tapped lands that I'm super scared of, especially knowing that the Evolving Wilds equivalent of the set just comes into play untapped, and you can use it for colorless, so you're way punished less. So I'm gonna say that's an 8. Now we have, oh god, a giant Eldrazi stapled to a land. Oh my god.
Why not?
7 mana for a Devoid. When you cast this spell, if colorless was spent to cast it, create 2 more colorless creatures. Because it wasn't cheap enough as it was. It's a 7/6. It is a tap to a land. It's a 10. It's free. It doesn't matter. It's 11 out of 10. You can't get better than free. These spells are ridiculous. I don't even know. Do you remember when I used to do you remember praying for like a 3/3 for 3 curve filler when you were just like, I need something? Now it doesn't matter. We're just playing.
I played all sorts of Nessian coursers and Theros.
We're just playing Lorcana now. Every bomb is stapled to a land if you need it. I can't even give these a serious rating because it just does not matter. They're so good. 10 out of 10. Like, it's free.
I mean, I'll stick back to the 8s, but
I think that one was better than the other one. I hate this. Why do I have to think so hard? All right, Glasswing Grace. I love the art on this. This is like the Orzhov, Gift of Orzhov art, which is beautiful. 5 mana.
Isn't it the same effect?
I think it might be. I haven't read it yet. Enchant creature gets +2/+2 and has lifelink and flying, which is very similar, if not the same, but then also has land on the back. So it's free. It's a 10 out of 10. Why wouldn't you run this, even if you're just one of these colors? It's free. Have you ever been like, man, I wish I didn't draw a land, and then you didn't have to? It's the best thing in the world. Next up, we've got Legion's Leadership. 2 mana until end of turn. Double target creature's power it gains first strike. That's just going to kill somebody for 2 mana. But it's not a mana. It's a land. It's totally free. So it doesn't matter. 10 out of 10. All right, next up, we have a 1 mana. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It gains indestructible till end of turn. It's basically a Snakeskin Veil. 10 out of 10. And Snakeskin Veil's like a 6 or a 7 on its own anyway, even when it's not stapled to a land.
Yeah, this is the first one of these really that's not overcosted on the front. I mean, you're happy with them all because of the land, but this is just straight up a good card even without the land.
Yeah. Rush of Inspiration, 3 mana. Draw 2 cards, then discard a card at random unless you pay 2 energy, which in these colors actually seems pretty fine, but it is even better because it's on a land. 9 out of 10. Gotta have some energy. Strength of Harvest, 3 mana, enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +1/+1 for each creature and or enchantment you control, which there's a lot of bestow in these creatures, and it's free. So 10 out of 10. Oh my god, it never ends. 2 mana, target creature you control deals damage equal to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. Your lands don't even fight. They bite. What is this? They couldn't even make it worse. They just made it better.
They bite in either green or red.
In green or red for free. You don't even have to pay anything to put this in your deck. You just can. 10 out of 10. Suppression Red.
Why do I think your first deck is going to have 33 modal lands and not actually going to do anything?
Would they all do something because it's free? Suppression Ray, 5 mana. Tap all target creature's target player controls. You may pay X energy. Then choose up to X creatures tapped that way and put a stun counter on each. Now, this one's not free because you have to have energy. But it's also just 5 mana to tap all their creatures and alpha them in Boros for free on a land. So, that's the bottom of the barrel where it's Boros tap all your shit, kill you. So, fine. But I'll give it a 6 in Boros. But if you're energy oriented, then it is 10 out of 10.
Why is it 10 out of 10?
Because it's free.
There we go.
Waterlog Teachings, 4 mana. Search your library for an instant card or a card with flash. Reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. These cards are awful typically when they are not free on a land. So we are going to give it an 8 out of 8, which is basically the same as a 10 out of 10 for those of you who are counting. And it's getting very late, and when I'm tired, I get loopy. But I do believe that is not the end. No, I thought that was the end.
Almost there.
I thought it was over.
3 more cards.
10 out of 10. It's free. Next up, we have Ethereum Shaper. We have some mana pips at the top, and then it's a 4/4.
White, blue, black, red would be those mana pips, so not green.
For those of you who are watching, you've watched this show for 10 hours, and if you just watched this one because you only wanted to see the fun multicolor cards, then I'm sorry. I promise I was not this loopy before. Or you're welcome if you're having a good time. You're still here, so you're welcome. It enters the battlefield. Create 2 blue Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. And she's an artifact on her own. Which is cool. And you could pay 2. Sacrifice 2 artifacts. Choose 1. Deal 3 damage to target player or planeswalker. Target creature gets -4/-4, or you gain 5 life. That's cool. It's got like a little something for every color that it's represented there.
A cool design. It's very, 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 very hard to cast.
Agreed. Very hard to cast.
This is just not in your average deck, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the fixing situation, and I feel like we spent so much energy on making colorless mana. A lot of the fixings in green. So if one of these colors were green, I would say maybe, but I think I'm not into this. This is just going to be...
If you're playing your 15 modal land tap land deck, you could probably cast it.
Yeah, if you've got a lot of the modals, then sure. But even then, I don't think it's going to come together. This is just a dream. This is a cookie card. Pack one, pick one, build around it, have a good time. Don't expect it to pilot super well.
Go 1 and 3, cast it once.
And be pretty happy, you know? You gotta get them cookies. So rating wise, it's a 3?
Sure, it's in that. It's like a 1/9, right? If you ever actually resolve it, it's fantastic, but you're never doing that in...
The funny thing is, it's only fantastic if you also have other artifacts. Like, she makes her own, but if you do that one ability, I don't think it was worth all the trouble. If you're only doing that one time, right?
Yeah, if you have to jump through a million hoops to play it, which you will.
And then also have to have other, like, help. Kalia of the Vast. Flying 2/2 whenever Kalia of the Vast attacks an opponent, you may put an angel, demon, or dragon and creature onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. So this is just a straight up reprint with really cool art. Very scary commander. There are some dragons, so this could be a thing. There's a demon or 2 in Rakdos.
There's 1 angel.
1 angel. There was like the Hellkite dragon. There was that really bad dragon. The little changeling, hatchling, something.
Oh, the fledgling dragon.
Yeah, but otherwise, 4 mana for a 2/2 flyer just is not what we're looking to do. Triple Hellkite deck, I'm running this, but the average deck, probably just a 1.
Yeah,
sorry,
it's just
Kalia.
You're picking 3, and it's the point of the card, but you've got 3 creature types that pretty much tend to show up mostly at rare. So you don't get a lot to choose from.
Yeah, I feel like if I'm in like the Affinity for Artifacts deck and I get lucky with this, I'll splash the white for it, sure.
That makes sense. And I've gotten almost all the way through, and I found 6 cards that work with this.
Yeah.
And I know there's a couple more in the bonus sheet, so like this is.
Expressive Iteration. An amazing magic spell. If you want to lose on the clock. 2 mana.
Not everybody does that. Only certain people do that.
Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand. Put the other one at the bottom. And put one into exile. You may cast the exile one this turn. Great card advantage. This card is fantastic. 7.5.
It's a little dirtily for limited, but it's It's actual card advantage, so I'll take it.
Yeah. Card advantage in a big way because it's not just two, right? It is three, and you get like the best of those. I do like everything about it. The one thing that's a little tough about this one is you can't do it on two to help you hit your third land
Nope.
drop, which makes it a little tight. Sometimes it makes you play things a little off cadence, which can suck, but that's also just more of a constructed issue needing to play that tightly. A lot of times you're just happy to cast this on turn 6 and 7 and just get the best options for you at the time.
This card was a staple in Legacy, and I was in my deck, and I was very happy to see it banned because I got so frustrated trying to figure out, do I play my land to play around days, but I want to hit a land? Like, the off cadence thing is real.
Yeah. That said, guys, we are officially done with our set review. Yanks, tell me what you think. Are you excited for the set?
I want to play the 40 Modal land deck.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Me too. For those of you guys who are have trooped through all like 10 hours of these, I really appreciate you. I hope you guys enjoyed them.
And I'm sorry.
If you guys want to see some of these cards in action, we did play an upgraded early access commander game that should be out in the next day or two. These I think are going to drop on like the 30th, and then that second game, the first game's on the 31st and the second game's on the 10th. So if you guys are interested in seeing some sweet commander built around these cards, check that out. And then for those of you guys who are new here, please hit the follow button, come back and see me. The early access Wizards event is on the 5th of June, so I will be doing that. So you guys can expect to see limited gameplay here on this channel as early as the 6th. Yanks, thank you so much for joining me for this absolute marathon.
Happy to do it. These are always fun.
Yeah, thank you again. I love all of you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe and check out that early access pre-order, I'm so sorry, for the free Nerd Girl and Hammy Eldrazi spawn. It helps me out in a big, big way and lets me continue making these. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.